आज के इस विश्लेषण में, right, in today's analysis, we're unpacking an absolutely fascinating piece of modern Indian legal history. We're looking at the landmark 2011 Supreme Court judgment in Sanjay Chandra versus CBI. Now, think about this for a second. What actually happens when a massive multi-crore economic scandal collides head-on with the fundamental right to personal liberty? How does a democratic justice system balance the sheer outrage of an entire nation against the constitutional rights of the accused? Well, we're going to explore exactly how the highest court in the land navigated that incredible tension.
It really boils down to this one kind of uncomfortable question sitting at the very heart of criminal jurisprudence. Saza guilt sabit hone ke baad milni chahiye ya pehle? Should punishment be handed out after guilt is proven or before? When the allegations are monumental, the temptation to just lock up the accused immediately, it's incredibly strong. But is that actually justice? Okay, let's dive into this and see how this exact dilemma shaped a landmark legal battle.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, the massive telecom scam. Second, the battle for bail. Third, the Supreme Court steps in. Fourth, bail, not jail, the rule. Fifth, Article 21 and speedy trial. And finally, number 6, the legacy and impact.
All right, moving right into part 1, the massive telecom scam, a nation's economy at stake.
So, back between 2007 and 2009, India was completely rocked by a scandal that literally dominated every single headline. The Central Bureau of Investigation, the CBI, leveled some explosive allegations regarding the allocation of Unified Access Services, or UAS licenses. According to the prosecution, the established first-come, first-served policy was deliberately manipulated. They alleged that ineligible companies, like those under the Unitech and Swan Telecom umbrellas, gained these incredibly lucrative telecom licenses. And key corporate figures, including Sanjay Chandra of Unitech and Vinod Goenka of Swan Telecom, well, they were accused of entering into criminal conspiracies with public servants. The result? A massive alleged financial loss to the state exchequer. Now, a quick caveat here. We are purely discussing the charges framed by the CBI. Our focus today isn't on declaring guilt or innocence, but really looking at how the legal system handles the rights of the accused while these severe allegations are still waiting to be proved in court.
This brings us to Section 2, the battle for bail, gravity versus liberty.
Following the arrests, an intense legal clash kicked off. It was your classic battle of the scales of justice, the sheer gravity of a monumental economic offense on one side and the fundamental right to personal liberty on the other. When the accused applied for bail, the special CBI judge and later the High Court of Delhi flat out rejected their applications. And why? Because those lower courts were heavily influenced by the sheer magnitude of the alleged crime. They pointed to the deep-rooted planning involved and that massive financial impact. But on the flip side, the appellants argued that they had cooperated completely with the investigation up to that point. I mean, they hadn't even been arrested during the investigation phase. Most importantly, they were leaning on the bedrock principle of criminal law, the presumption of innocence.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this key number, 7. You see, the appellant's legal counsel pointed out that the maximum statutory punishment for the primary offenses they were actually charged with, which were cheating and forgery, was only 7 years. Now, in Indian law, there's a specific bar on granting bail for offenses punishable by death or life imprisonment, but not for offenses carrying a maximum of 7 years. So the defense argued, you can't just look at the alleged financial amount. Courts have to look at the maximum punishment prescribed by the statute when figuring out the gravity of the offense for bail purposes.
Let's move to Section 3. The Supreme Court steps in, redefining pretrial detention.
This stark disagreement is exactly what pushed the case all the way to the top. In November 2011, a Supreme Court bench with Justices G.S. Singhvi and H.L. Dattu stepped in, and they delivered this incredibly powerful statement. They noted that deprivation of liberty must be considered a punishment, unless it can be required to ensure that an accused will stand his trial. The Supreme Court was sending a very clear message here. You cannot use pretrial detention to teach someone a lesson. You can't keep someone in jail just to show the public that you're being tough on corruption. Custody before a conviction isn't punitive, it's preventive. Its only real purpose is to make absolutely sure the accused actually shows up to court.
On to Section 4, bail not jail, the rule.
To make this point, the Supreme Court didn't just invent a concept out of thin air. As the famous legal adage goes in Hindi, bail ek niyam hai, jail ek apwad. Bail is the rule, jail is an exception. The bench quoted the legendary Justice V.R. Krishna Iyer from a landmark 1977 case reminding everyone of exactly that rule. Refusing bail is a direct restriction on personal liberty. So, while the gravity of the offense is absolutely a factor to consider, it can't be the only thing that stampedes a court into mechanically denying bail.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the Supreme Court assessed the situation. They balanced four key factors. First, the seriousness of the charge. Second, the severity of the potential punishment. Third, the risk of the accused absconding. And fourth, the likelihood of witness tampering. When the court applied this test to Sanjay Chandra and the others, they noticed something really crucial. Yes, the charge was serious, no doubt, but the CBI had failed to place any concrete material on record proving that these specific individuals were actually going to run away or tamper with evidence. A vague apprehension by the police just isn't enough to strip a citizen of their liberty.
Let's head to Section 5, Article 21, and speedy trial, the constitutional right. This part elevates the whole discussion from basic procedural rules to the ultimate constitutional level. Let's demystify this bedrock principle. Article 21 is a fundamental right stating that no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. The Supreme Court pointed out that keeping an under-trial prisoner in jail indefinitely, that is a direct violation of this right. Every person arrested is entitled to a speedy trial, and if the state cannot guarantee a speedy trial, it simply cannot infinitely hold the accused in custody while they wait.
And why exactly was a speedy trial completely impossible here? Well, because of this number right here, 17. There were 17 accused persons in this specific trial. The witness statements ran into several hundred pages, and the documentary evidence was just voluminous. The Supreme Court took a pragmatic look and observed that this trial was going to take a very, very long time. If bail was denied, the accused might actually end up spending more time in jail waiting for the trial to finish than the maximum sentence they'd even receive if found guilty.
Furthermore, the court looked at the status of the case. The investigation was completed. The charge sheet had been filed. So the crucial point is this. Because the CBI had already finished its probe, keeping the accused in custody was no longer a necessity. The investigating agency didn't need them in jail to gather evidence anymore.
Finally, Section 6, the legacy and impact, stringent conditions.
So how did the Supreme Court practically resolve this? I mean, how do you grant liberty without compromising a massive, highly sensitive trial? Well, the court decided the appellants were indeed entitled to bail, but they attached some highly stringent conditions. Granting bail definitely doesn't mean letting the accused go unchecked. The court demanded 2 solvent sureties of 5 lakh rupees each. The accused had to surrender their passports immediately, wiping out that flight risk entirely. They had mandatory attendance at all hearings, and an absolute strict ban was placed on making any contact, threat, or promise to any witnesses. These conditions were the perfect balancing act. They kept the integrity of the trial perfectly intact, while still upholding the constitutional liberty of the individuals.
The Sanjay Chandra's judgment remains an absolute cornerstone of Indian bail jurisprudence today. It established the clear precedent that in economic offenses, massive financial scale alone cannot justify denying bail if there's no proof of flight risk or witness tampering. It's a vital reminder that courts must not be swayed by community sentiment or media outrage, but have to remain anchored to the Constitution. So I want to leave you with a powerful thought to ponder. Does denying bail purely based on public outrage threaten the very fabric of innocent until proven guilty? If we allow pretrial detention to just become a tool for public satisfaction, do we risk breaking the scales of justice entirely? I hope this explainer really helped you understand the profound legal mechanics behind this landmark case. Keep asking questions, keep learning, and we'll see you in the next analysis.